The alarm rang at 4:30 a.m., not because Hung needed to wake early to beat traffic or enjoy the quiet of dawn, but because the height demanded it. The sky was still dark when he swung his legs off the bed, careful not to wake his wife. The room smelled faintly of last night's rice and the antiseptic soap she liked, a clean smell that reminded him of hospitals and rules and things that could go wrong. He stretched, slowly, feeling the familiar ache bloom across his lower back like a bruise pressed by an invisible thumb. He had learned to greet the pain instead of resisting it. Resistance wasted energy. He needed all of it. By the time he reached the construction site, the city had begun to stir. Motorbikes buzzed like insects waking in waves, and vendors pulled metal shutters upward with the clatter that echoed between unfinished buildings. The crane tower rose from the ground like a spine, steel vertebrae stacked with methodical patience. At its top waited the cabin, his office, his cage, his sky room. Once he climbed up, there would be no stepping down until the day surrendered its light. Rules were rules, written and unwritten. You went up prepared or you paid for it. He checked his pack the way a soldier checked a rifle. Water to bottles, already warm from the night. Food rice wrapped in banana leaf. Salted fish, a boiled egg, a folded piece of cloth, a plastic container with a lid that did not quite close anymore. He did not label it, but everyone knew what it was for. There were no toilets in the sky. The climb took time. Each rung demanded attention, a rhythm of breath and muscle. As he rose, the sounds of the ground softened into a distant blur. Conversations thinned into gestures. Faces became dots. When he reached the cabin, sweat already traced lines down his ribs. He pulled himself inside, closed the door, and the world narrowed to glass, metal, levers, and the quiet hum of waiting machinery. At 6 a.m., the radio crackled to life. The day began. From the cabin, the city looked orderly, almost kind. Streets aligned themselves into sensible lines. People moved like ideas rather than bodies. Hung learned early that height lied. From above, danger disguised itself as geometry. The hook swung below him, a patient pendulum that answered only his hands. He tested the controls, feeling the familiar resistance, the way a musician tested strings before a performance. There was no applause here, only consequences. As the sun climbed, the cabin warmed, glass-trapped heat, turning the space into a slow cooker. Hung cracked a window, but the breeze brought dust, and dust burned the eyes. He chose heat over blindness. By mid-morning, his shirt clung to him. He drank sparingly, counting swallows the way a miser counted coins. Every sip now meant thirst later. There was no refill above the city. The radio barked instructions. Lift, rotate, lower, stop, faster, careful. The voices below blended into a chorus that did not know his name. They did not need to. To them, he was the crane. When the load drifted, they cursed the wind. When it steadied, they praised luck. The man in the sky remained invisible. Around noon, the heat sharpened. 40 degrees felt like a rumor on the ground, but up here it became a fact. The cabin smelled of metal and salt. Hong's hands slipped slightly on the controls, and he tightened his grip, not with force, but with focus. He thought of his daughter's question from the night before, why he always ate dinner late, why he sometimes stared at nothing when he finally sat down. He had smiled and said work was tall. She laughed, imagining something like a giraffe made of bricks. A gust of wind came without warning. The load shuddered, swung wider than it should. On the ground, a man waved both arms, urgency slicing the air. Hung corrected, easing the controls, calculating angles the way gamblers calculated odds. He felt the tremor in the tower pass through his bones. This was the part no one filmed for promotional videos. This was the part where mistakes did not get second takes. The radio crackled again, sharper now. We're behind, Someone said, "Keep it moving." Hung swallowed. He knew what behind meant. It meant overtime unpaid. It meant a supervisor making notes. It meant the quiet replacement that arrived one morning without announcement. Up here, you learned that speed and safety were enemies forced to share a room. He kept the load steady and ignored the clock. By early afternoon, his back screamed. Sitting was not rest. It was a different labor. The spine was not designed to be still under stress, but the job demanded stillness layered with precision. He shifted his weight, micro-adjustments that bought seconds of relief. The plastic container waited in the corner, a fact he refused to acknowledge until the body made the decision for him. When it did, he turned away from the windows, performed the act quickly, efficiently, without ceremony. Dignity was a luxury he had learned to live without. The city below ate lunch. Smoke rose from street stalls. Somewhere, soup simmered. The smell reached him as memory, not sensation. He unwrapped his rice and chewed slowly, forcing himself to eat even when appetite fled. Fuel was fuel. He drank another measured sip. Time thickened. The afternoon stretched, elastic and cruel. The sun angled lower, but the heat lingered like a debt unpaid. The radio voices grew irritable. A minor collision, metal kissing metal, sent a jolt through the crane. "No injuries," they said. Hung nodded to no one. He adjusted and moved on. You did not dwell. Dwelling invited fear, and fear had no seat in the cabin. Then came the moment every operator knew and dreaded. A dizziness, light as a question at first, then heavier. The edges of the world softened. Hung closed his eyes for a count of 3, breathing through his nose, grounding himself in the feel of the controls. He thought of an old colleague who had fainted once, just once, and never came back. The report had used words like incident and protocol. The city had kept building. "Stay with me," Hung whispered, not sure whether he spoke to himself or the machine. He opened his eyes and the world snapped back into focus. He took another sip of water, more than he had planned. The ledger in his head adjusted, grim but necessary. Late afternoon brought long shadows. The wind changed its mind again, playful now, tugging at the load like a child testing boundaries. Hung matched it move for move, a quiet dance conducted in steel. On the ground, someone laughed. Another shouted. Life continued. At 5:45 p.m., the radio announced the last lift. Hung felt a surge of relief so sharp it frightened him. Relief was dangerous. Relief made you sloppy. He treated the final task like the first. Careful. Exact. When the load settled, the signal came, stop. He shut down the controls and sat still, hands resting where they always rested, as if the machine might ask him to continue. The sun hovered at the edge of the city, staining the sky with tired colors. He waited until the clock agreed with him. Then he stood. The climb down was worse than the climb up. Gravity returned the favor it had withheld all day. His legs trembled, unfamiliar with movement. He took each rung slowly, refusing the temptation to hurry. Falling at the end was still falling. When his boots touched the ground, the sight was already thinning. Men changed shirts, laughed, checked phones. No one looked up. Hung rolled his shoulders, feeling pain settle into new shapes. He glanced back at the tower, at the cabin now empty, a small box against the sky. Tomorrow, it would wait for him again. He walked home through streets cooling from the day. The city did not thank him. It did not know his name. Buildings rose, obedient and proud, their glass catching the last light. Somewhere inside them, people would sleep. At home, his daughter ran to him, arms flung wide. He lifted her carefully, mindful of his back. She smelled like soap and evening. His wife handed him a glass of water, cold. He drank deeply, at last without counting. That night, lying in the dark, Hung felt the sway of the crane in his bones, a phantom motion that rocked him toward sleep. Above the city, the tower stood silent, In the morning, the alarm would ring again, and he would climb. Until the shift ended, he would remain above the world, unseen, holding the sky steady long enough for others to build their lives beneath it.